Do we need to endure pain when we're on a healing path? And is there such a thing as good pain and bad pain? How do we know the difference? Hey, I'm Alicia from abilitymastery.com, and this question is inspired by an email I got from one of you. I'm not going to read your name because I wasn't sure if you would want me to here on YouTube, but in this email, I was asked, in your blog and video, you say that we will need to endure some level of pain in order to resolve pain. I'm not sure what an acceptable level of pain is. Inability to breathe regularly? Lightheadedness? Is it okay to go easy at first and over time take it deeper? So I love this question. Thank you so much for writing in with it. I think this is probably a topic that I haven't covered enough, surprisingly, even though I talk so much about being a pain advocate. So you've probably heard me say that, and I am really wondering if this question or these questions were prompted by me saying that I'm a pain advocate and my goal is to help you lose your fear of pain, right? And yes, certainly on the path of healing, we're probably gonna have to go through some discomfort. The first thing that I want to address is the word endure, because I don't really believe it's ever productive on a healing journey to endure pain, or really at any point in life, unless you have to survive. So we learn endurance to survive. And some of us learned endurance in childhood and we get really good at it. And these are the people that have a high pain tolerance or high pain threshold. So I'm one of those people, but not everybody has that high pain threshold or ability to simply endure a lot of intensity or pain or suffering. And I don't really know if it's anything we should celebrate. I mean, we do tend to put, extreme athletes on pedestals and then, wow, like, oh my God, ultra runners, right? Like, how do they run 100 miles or 200 miles and sometimes in the desert in extreme heat on fractured feet, right? And then we put these people on pedestals. I'm not sure that that's who we should be worshiping, but that's just me. And the reason I'm saying that is this word endure implies that we have to get through something, that there's really nothing we can do about it but to either get through or kind of deal with it until it's over or wait for the moment to pass, right? And get on the other side of it. But on the healing journey in particular, I like to talk about productive pain and unproductive pain. So specifically with this question that I was asked, she's talking about lightheadedness and inability to breathe regularly. And I want to say that in and of themselves, these things aren't automatically bad. I wouldn't label them automatically bad. And I also wouldn't label them something to endure. It's going to be somewhat subjective, so my answer might confuse you a little bit, but I hope to clarify any confusion that I do, create in my initial answer here. Some people might be able to associate lightheadedness with, I'm, nothing dangerous, basically. So I'm a little lightheaded. Whoa, that's weird. Okay, whoop, like get my bearings. Okay, I'm good, right? Other people might get lightheaded and start to panic a little, or, maybe that lightheadedness or inability to breathe creates a sympathetic nervous system response that puts you in fight, flight, or freeze. So primarily, this is really about your individual tolerance for potential threat detection and whether or not you're going into a sympathetic response. And I also want to say that just triggering the sympathetic response isn't necessarily bad. It can sometimes be productive. However, we really don't want to stay there. And we also don't want to ingrain kind of unhealthy nervous system patterns or neural loops that are actually already kind of keeping us stuck or in pain. So I like to talk about when we're doing fascia release, for example, or maybe even if you're an athlete, if you know, do some kind of physical activity, or maybe you haven't done any for a while and you're getting back into it after injury. I like to talk about taking ourselves to our edge, but not totally over the cliff. Now, some people might be able to jump off the cliff. I kind of do that sometimes, but I don't necessarily advocate it for everyone because I don't think it's appropriate for everybody. So in this question, you asked me, or I was asked, you know, what's an appropriate level of pain when you're on a healing journey? And I would say the appropriate level of maybe intensity or sensation that maybe you're labeling pain is whatever you can actually feel fully without dissociating from it, without going into endurance mode, without reacting to it in any kind of fight, flight, or freeze manner, basically. So if you can feel fully what you're feeling, if you can be with it fully, even though it's a lot of intensity, then you're good, right? And that might mean you're right up against your edge. But the moment you go over the cliff, that's when you trigger that sympathetic response. Your body believes you're in danger, and it goes into one of those three, usually, or a combination of fight, flight, or freeze, right? Because anytime we're in danger, you know, adrenaline gets running through the body potentially, and we get cued to behave in a certain way to keep ourselves safe. So you want to feel safe through the healing process. And I always say that it's possible to feel really safe while feeling a lot of intensity. And this is individual to each of us. So some people can feel a lot of intensity at once and still feel perfectly safe. And when I say intensity, I mean perhaps you're feeling a lot of emotion. Maybe you're feeling anger or grief or rage as you're, you know, on a healing path. Maybe you're feeling a lot of physical sensation if you're doing fascia release, right? You can feel all those things and still feel perfectly safe. But some people aren't there yet, and that's totally okay. So again, this is just going to be super individual. But I want you to keep in mind this idea of productive versus unproductive. I don't know that it's ever productive to feel lightheaded, right? So that's why it's not the end of the world, and it's okay if it happens. But you don't want to endure it. You don't want to just get through lightheadedness and assume you're doing positive things for your body if it's happening frequently. I would assume, you know, I just did something that maybe triggered a little bit of a sympathetic response. Maybe I should back off a little bit. So yes, it is perfectly okay to take it easier in the beginning and then go deeper. That's what all of us have to do. We have to start where we are, acknowledge, you know, where our nervous system is at in relationship to sensation and emotion on a healing journey, and cultivate the capacity to be with whatever is happening while still feeling safe. And if you notice yourself not feeling safe, or if you notice yourself going into fight mode or dissociation and thinking about what you're going to have for dinner the next day, and you're no longer feeling sensation in your body or emotion, right, then you've probably tipped yourself over the edge a little bit. No big deal. Just back off a little bit, right? And find out where your edge is. And then you can grow your edge. So, you know, you can push it further and further and further. And instead of in the beginning, maybe having a small circle, right? You expand it, you expand it, you expand it. And then pretty soon you have this giant, you know, circle of ability to be with all kinds of and all levels of sensation and emotion. But again, keep in mind this idea of productive versus unproductive. And I'm not going to go through the whole list of things that could come up on a healing journey that could be labeled productive or unproductive, but I'm pretty sure your common sense can help you at least label the obviously unproductive ones. I don't think it's ever productive to be lightheaded. I don't think it's ever productive to not be able to breathe in a way that you feel safe, right? So again, just to be clear with this, you can breathe really loudly and you can breathe noisily. You can, make a lot of sounds or, emotions or yell and be breathing kind of irregularly, right? And still feel safe. So that's the number one thing. So use your intuition, check in at, the level of your nervous system and whether you feel safe, and gauge from there how much you can be with, and then do practice growing with it and going deeper. And that's going to happen as a matter of course as well with fascia release, because the more fascia release you do, the easier it gets typically. So I hope this helps you. This is a huge topic, and I want to actually invite right now some questions that maybe you have for me about this topic of, good pain versus bad pain. Is it, what is good pain versus bad pain? Or is there even such a thing as that, right? And how do you know you're on the right track and doing the right things? Because ultimately, what I know these types of questions point to is your desire to know you're doing the right thing and to know you're on the right track. Because a lot of us would be willing to endure lightheadedness or endure irregular breathing if we were going to get better, right? But I want to help you know that you're on the right track instead of potentially having you think you're doing something that's productive, but really maybe isn't doing your body or your nervous system or your fascia any good. So please post your questions below, because I'd love to do some follow-up videos on the subtopics within this category. And I'd love to answer your specific question because, again, this topic is just so big that I can help you guys a lot better when I get a really specific question like the one that was emailed to me. So I hope you post your questions about this below this video. I will be going through all of them and looking for ones that would be great to do for a follow-up video here. I'd like to hear any takeaways you have, and then I'm happy to try to answer any quick questions also in the comment section. So definitely drop me a comment and I'll see you there. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for the question that came in. I look forward to reading any questions that come in as a follow-up for this and then filming those for you too. So I will see you next time.